If your career anxiety oscillates between how am I supposed to get promoted when the market is this competitive, or is AI going to replace my job entirely? This video is for you because work is changing faster than anything we have seen, and it is killing the linear career path along the way. And being able to successfully navigate what comes next is not going to be about just learning AI tools the fastest or continuing to get promoted so that your resume looks more competitive. It's about fundamentally evolving the way that you think about building a career. A more useful question to ask yourself right now is, as the market shifts, how am I able to still create value? Because the answer to that changes everything about how you approach building your career. Welcome back to Good Job, the show designed to give you the tools, frameworks, and expert advice to build a happier and more fulfilling career in this ever chaotic world of work. I'm your host, Hannah Geft, and this episode feels like one of the most important pieces of research and content that I have put out in a long time, because the impacts of what we are going to talk about are very real. Like, I'm sure you are aware that AI is disrupting the linear career right under our noses, and millions of real people with real lives and real careers and real aspirations are going to face very real consequences. So today we're going to talk about what comes next and how you can approach building a lasting and sustainable career in the age of AI. We will cover why the linear career is eroding and why that's less catastrophic than it sounds, the shift in your career currency and what it means for how you go after new opportunities, and what it actually looks like in practice to build a career without a ladder. But before we do all that, I would so appreciate if you could like this video and subscribe if you are interested in having these kinds of conversations. My very small, scrappy, and incredible team and I have so much content and topics and conversations planned for the year, including conversations with experts that I honestly cannot believe that I get the chance to talk to. And your support, liking, subscribing, leaving comments, like sharing your feedback, that is the only reason that we can show up and make this kind of content. So it means more than you know. And with that, let's get into it. The linear career path, the sometimes more passive than is probably good for us career building model where we follow this vertical upward trajectory within a single job, industry, or function. Most of us know the linear career path well. The promotion that's always just one more quarter away. The calendar mental math of how long until quitting is acceptable. And the obsession with finding the dream job you want to pursue forever. The linear career path is a system where our advancement and really our ability to earn more money is based on our track record of credentials and experience. And it's eroding. Not because jobs are disappearing in the wake of AI, but because they are changing faster than those credentials can capture. As AI embeds into roles, it more frequently replaces individual tasks, not entire jobs. Meaning the composition of those jobs that people have held for decades is fundamentally changing. It won't matter nearly as much if you have past experience in that job, because no one is going to have past experience in this new and evolved version of that job. And the hiring market is already adapting. Skills-based hiring adoption, for example, has grown from 57% to 85% since 2022. Companies are implementing work trials as part of their hiring processes rather than just relying on interviews. And the amount of US job postings requiring a degree fell from 20.4% to 17.8% in the last 5 years. I mean, Business Insider, who I love for all their beautifully hot takes, just published the claim, it's official, the resume is dead. The message that these employers are sending is clear. We don't care as much anymore about what you've done. Show us what you know how to do. And a lot of times that means knowing how to do it in collaboration with AI. This idea that a new technology not only just changes the way you work, but actually predicts success is not new. In fact, we have experienced this many times throughout our humanity. I've been reading this new book. It's called Open to Work, and it was written by LinkedIn's CEO and their Chief Economic Opportunity Officer. I love that title. And it essentially breaks down how we can expect work to change in the age of AI. Like, as AI takes over task work and breaks down this more, better, faster corporate model that has defined work for centuries. Yeesh. One of my favorite parts of the book recalls the story of Bette Nesmith Graham, who in the early 1950s was a single mother and an aspiring artist who was working as a bank secretary trying to make ends meet. And her job mostly consisted of typing up documents. When the electronic typewriter launched around that same time and promised to transform office work, she saw her employment flash before her eyes. Because she already wasn't very good at her job. She was a pretty slow typist, she was prone to errors, and the overly sensitive keys of this new technology made that even worse. They left permanent ink impressions that meant she had to start an entire new page from scratch. It was a nightmare. Now, most of the frustrated typists at the time just focused on becoming better typists. Like, that seems like what the most rational person should do, right? Learn how to do the same thing you were doing, but do it better with the new technology. No, wrong. Instead, our ambitious and innovative Miss Bette went back to the goal. She wasn't getting paid to be a fast typist. She was getting paid to produce clean documents without errors. So one evening, she mixed up some white paint to cover up those tiny little typing mistakes. Her invention caught the attention of other secretaries who wanted it for themselves. They were running into the same issues. So she doubled down, she started mixing bottles, selling batches, and she eventually grew a successful business that sold to Gillette for $47.5 million in 1979. Take that, electric typewriter. The introduction of this new technology, the electric typewriter, could have run Bette out of a job, and for many other secretaries, it may have. But when the method of how she completed her job changed, she didn't just look for a new version of the old approach. She reoriented what she was building toward entirely. And in the AI era of work, we don't build our careers by just trying to get better at typing. The old linear model measured your value through all the credentials you've accumulated across your career, neatly packaged down into these precise bullet-pointed resumes. How long you've been at a job, what titles you've held, the companies you've worked at. This new model of work slowly but surely will measure it differently. What abilities do you know how to demonstrate right now? What outcomes do you know how to create? What problems can you confidently solve? Now, I will caveat that not every company is there yet, and there are still gaps between what companies say they're doing and what is actually happening. For example, Fortune even downgrading skills-based hiring and just calling it an HR mantra. So it's not like this switch has been flicked, but it is unmistakably the direction that the market is moving. One of my favorite chapters of Open to Work challenges the very deeply rooted identity that we adopt when we talk about our jobs. And if you ask someone what they do for work, I would be willing to bet money that you will get some variation of an answer like this. I'm a marketer. I'm an accountant. I'm a doctor. I'm a product manager. But let us not forget about Miss Bette. Her job wasn't to be a typist. Her job was to produce clean documents. And with the mental framing of I am a typist, she would never have been able to innovate. I want you to try this shift for yourself. I solve X problems. I create Y outcomes. So for example, if you are a marketer, maybe you help people find the right product. Or if you're an accountant, you help businesses understand and protect their money. So really, give it a try. Challenge yourself to think about what sort of alternative approaches exist to creating those outcomes. Are there other methods that you could try to accomplish the same goal? Success in the future of work will involve adapting the methods that we use to solve these problems and the structures by which we earn a living solving them. And what excites me the most about this, unlike a static job title, is the way it changes this approach to career building. It gives us all so much more freedom to solve problems that we genuinely care about. There's something I want to make sure that we don't forget, because the idea of AI eroding these jobs that we have worked hard for decades to understand can sound pretty terrifying. But the linear career, the way we know it, was not always the natural order of things. It was actually an industrial era invention. The factory system created demand for workers who showed up to the same building at the same time to execute the same tasks reliably, precisely, and repeatedly. The goal was basically getting human output to resemble the measurability and optimizability of machine output. And before that, work was actually very entrepreneurial. entrepreneurial. Like lawyers used to have private practices and make house calls. Doctors ran their own clinics. Craftsmen owned their own trades. People built careers by owning their work and delivering outcomes. Sound familiar? I think we are going to see a return to that way of working. Instead of this like linear ladder you climb, because that really isn't a prerequisite to deliver an outcome, you can start to think of your career like a portfolio that you curate. Like this collection of projects and skills and tangible, real outcomes that you have created. Every piece of experience, whether it's a lateral move or a project outside of your job description, it adds to this body of your work aimed at proving that you know how to solve a particular problem. And over time, all the combination and the variety of experiences only makes you more adept at solving that problem. And theoretically, the more effective you are at solving problems that remain important in the market, the more money you stand to make. So advancement becomes less about how can I get promoted and more about how do I build a body of work that makes me irreplaceable. Of course, there is a downside to this that I don't want to just gloss over. The linear career path plays a very important role. It is a learning system. It is awfully hard to build the skills and judgment required to solve really consequential problems without years of training working alongside other smart people, absorbing how decisions actually get made, what good actually looks like, and how you can navigate complexity. Like selfishly, I do feel really lucky that I started my career 10 years ago because I feel like I got the training wheels that set me up for success in what turned out to be a very non-linear career. And the generation entering the workforce right now will not get that luxury. That said, our economy will not succeed if entry-level people just disappear forever. Because in case we are all forgetting, people age. People get promoted. People exit the workforce. All that senior talent that can very confidently solve problems now, they were once junior talent that somebody invested in training. And at some point, companies are going to reckon with the fact that if they're not building that new early career talent right now, there is not going to be experienced talent to hire later. My hope is that forward-thinking companies and organizations will work to bridge that gap before it becomes a problem. Perhaps there will be new apprenticeship and internship models. This could be structured onboarding that deliberately transfers judgment, and it could be making intentional investment in hiring and developing junior talent that is more than just like throwing AI at them and calling it a day. Some companies will figure this out before others, and those will be the ones worth working for. But like, we are literally watching this unfold in real time. And while we all wait for the slow-moving institutions to catch up, the most useful thing you can do if you are someone who needs to prove you can solve problems is stop waiting for someone to just hand you the path. Here's what I find genuinely the most exciting about this moment, even with all of those brutally honest caveats on the table. The people who can figure out how to build judgment and proof of skill set, even without just being handed the traditional path to follow, will be rare. And scarcity usually creates a premium. I hate to bash it, but like, not really. The linear career path was passive by design. Like, it's spelled out for you what to do next. You show up, you do the work, you wait your turn, and then you'll get promoted. Or maybe next quarter. The path that just gets handed to you is the thing going away. The approach that works now requires something a lot more self-directed, more entrepreneurial. Maybe it looks like this: seeking out mentors instead of intentionally waiting for someone to assign you one. Taking on projects before you're asked to. Taking on freelance or contract work so that you can tie your names to real outcomes for real clients. Making lateral moves because you want to build range, not because you're like getting pushed sideways. Sharing your thinking in public so people can see how you solve problems, not just that you have like this title that implies you can. None of that is radical. And most of it actually also worked really well when it came to building linear careers. It just now needs to be a lot more intentional when it used to be pretty optional. And I'd argue, as somebody who built my entire career pretty deliberately, non-linearly, it is so much more interesting and it is so much more likely to yield a career that you actually care about growing. So the era of the passive career is ending, which I get can sound like a threat, but I think it's actually the most interesting time to be building a career precisely because the path isn't present. The career ladder spelled out what to do next. And I have heard from thousands versions of you, how painful, how boring, and how unfulfilling that really feels. This new path requires you to decide, what problems do you want to be known for solving? What does your portfolio need to contain to prove what you can do? How are you building judgment without just waiting for someone to hand it to you? That is more uncomfortable than following a preset path, but it is so much more fulfilling when it works. And if you've made it this far, thank you. These are big topics, and I know I'm only scratching the surface in one video, but the problem that I feel most passionate about solving right now is helping people navigate this intense transition. So there will be lots more content to come on this. Give this channel a subscribe if that sounds like something you'd like, and the video a thumbs up if you found it helpful, and I'll see you next time.